In the shadows where truth and tales intertwine, we find the thrilling, the chilling, the downright spine-tingling. From the paranormal to the peculiar, every echo has a story. Dare to delve into the unexpected, the unexplained? Brace yourself, for you're about to embark on a journey where fear meets fascination. Stay tuned if you dare, for stories that will make your heart race and your mind ponder. Welcome to the realm of the eerie, the realm of the unknown. And remember, like and subscribe, if you dare. I am a retired park ranger, having served the wilderness for over 57 years, and I have some stories to share that will make your blood run cold. Just a few months into my post, I had my first eerie encounter, a strange little girl vanishing into the woods. It was the beginning of a series of inexplicable events. Odd animal noises that didn't belong to any creature I knew of, a constant sense of being watched, and odors that were beyond unsettling. Some days, the air would carry the smell of sulfur. Other days, the stench of death that could make your stomach churn. I tried to shake it off, attributing these anomalies to the quirks of the great outdoors. But then, I met my colleague, Clive, a seasoned ranger. And that's when I learned these odd occurrences weren't just part of the job. They were warnings, echoes from the forest's unseen depths. I thought these odd occurrences were just part of the job until I met my colleague, Clive. Clive, a seasoned ranger, once warned me that if I ever smelled sulfur or anything so strong it made my stomach churn, I should run and not look back. That was during an afternoon trek deep into the forest, where the towering trees seemed to swallow up all light and sound. Clive, with his weather-beaten face and eyes that had seen too much, was my guide into the wilderness. As we journeyed past the point where most rangers dared not tread, he shared his wisdom. The words fell from his lips like stones, heavy and ominous. The moment he mentioned the sulfuric stench, I felt a chill run down my spine, a memory of a similar smell creeping back into my consciousness. I asked him about it, the fear in my voice unmistakable. His answer was a simple shake of his head, his eyes focusing on something beyond my sight. "Do you smell that?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. I hadn't noticed it at first, but then it hit me, an overpowering odor that made my eyes water. The same stench he had warned me about. Clive insisted that I run back to the ranger station while he stayed behind. His eyes held a serious gleam, and in that moment, I knew better than to question him, so I ran, my heart pounding in my chest, the smell of sulfur clinging to my nostrils. My arrival at the ranger station was met with surprise. George, the senior ranger, stood abruptly upon hearing my tale, his face pale. He asked me to guide him back to where I had left Clive. But when we returned, Clive was gone. His footprints cut off abruptly, as if he had been yanked into the sky. I told George about the smell, the warning, but he merely nodded, a hint of nervousness in his voice. He assured me Clive would be okay. But I knew better. I knew I wouldn't see Clive again. I ran back to the ranger station, not knowing that it would be the last time I saw Clive. As I returned to the station, I informed George, another senior ranger, about the incident. His usually jovial face turned serious as he listened to my recount, the silence of the room only broken by the occasional crackle of the radio. Without a word, George grabbed his coat, his face set in grim determination, and motioned for me to lead him back to where I'd last seen Clive. The forest was eerily quiet as we retraced my steps, our footfalls muffled by the thick carpet of leaves and pine needles underfoot. George, who had always seemed invincible to me, was now showing signs of concern, which only amplified my own anxiety. We followed Clive's footprints, a trail of crushed foliage and disturbed earth, deeper and deeper into the woods. Then, as abruptly as they had begun, the footprints stopped. Right there in the middle of the trail, as if Clive had been plucked straight out of his boots and lifted into the sky. We searched the surrounding area, but it was as if the forest had swallowed him whole. There was no sign of a struggle, no scraps of clothing caught on the branches, no blood, just an empty forest and a trail that ended in the middle of nowhere. I recall George's face as he stared at the spot where Clive's footprints disappeared, his brow furrowed in deep thought, his eyes reflecting a worry I had never seen before. He turned to me then, his voice surprisingly steady as he asked if I'd noticed anything else while Clive and I were together. Other than the wretched smell, I could only shake my head. We stood there for a moment longer, the silence of the forest pressing in on us from all sides. I could tell George wanted to say more to explain what was happening, but he seemed lost for words. Instead, he placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder and said, "I'm sure he's okay, John. Let's head back to the station." With a hint of nervousness in his voice, George assured me that Clive was probably okay. But as we made our way back through the forest, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was very wrong. Despite George's assurances, I never saw Clive again. Whenever I asked about him, I was told he was on personal leave. But the hollow echo of those words couldn't quench the growing flame of my suspicion. His sudden disappearance was too odd, too out of character. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was awry. Weeks passed, and the scent of mystery hung heavy in the air, as pungent as the sulfuric odor that lingered in my nostrils. It was during this time that George summoned me to his office. His face was etched with a seriousness I had not seen before. The air was thick with tension as he motioned for me to sit down. "We don't usually do this with someone so young, but we have no choice," George said. His voice was a low hum, the words rolling out like thunder before a storm. My heart pounded in my chest like a wild drum, each beat echoing my anxiety. Suddenly, the shadows in the corner of the room stirred, and out stepped a man. "I believe you've met Dennis," George said, gesturing towards him. I remembered Dennis. I had met him a few weeks back, a man of few words, but with a gaze as sharp as a hawk's. Dennis moved closer, the light from the window casting an eerie glow on his face. "We're going to need your help," he said, his voice gravelly. "There's things you don't understand about the forest. All you need to know is you contact me right away." He extended his hand in at a card with his phone number. I took it, my mind racing with questions. "I don't understand what's going on," I stuttered. Dennis looked at me, his eyes piercing. "You don't need to understand, just contact me if you notice anything strange, got it?" Dennis handed me a card with his phone number, instructing me to contact him if I noticed anything strange. The meeting ended, leaving me in a whirlpool of confusion and anxiety. What was happening? What was this about? And most importantly, where was Clive? Confused and anxious, I left George's office, the card from Dennis burning a hole in my pocket. It felt like a bad joke, a prank played by the older guys on the newbie ranger. But the look in George's eyes, the seriousness in Dennis's voice, and the chilling silence that had enveloped the room told me otherwise. This was no joke. This was something far more sinister. Back at my desk, I found myself staring at the card. A plain white card with nothing but a phone number. No name, no title, nothing. Just a number. It felt like a lifeline, a beacon of hope amidst the growing darkness. But it was also a reminder of the mysteries that lurked within the forest, the unknown dangers that lay in wait. My mind wandered back to Clive. His words echoed in my head. "If you ever smell sulfur or something so strong it makes your stomach churn, then run and don't look back." Was he simply trying to scare me? Or was he warning me of something real? Something he had encountered himself? I remembered his sudden disappearance, the way his footprints had simply vanished as if he had been plucked from the earth. I remembered the fear in George's eyes, the way he had nervously dismissed Clive's absence. I remembered the sulfurous smell that had filled the air that day, and I couldn't help but feel a chilling dread creep up my spine. What was it that Clive had known? What was it that he had tried to warn me about? What was it that had happened to him? And what was it that I was now a part of? The questions kept coming, but the answers remained elusive. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the mystery only deepened. The forest continued to be a source of strange noises and odd occurrences. The sulfurous smell would sometimes waft through the air, a grim reminder of the unknown. And Clive remained missing. Dennis's card became a constant companion, a reminder of the cryptic meeting and the strange world I'd been thrust into. I found myself constantly on the lookout for anything unusual, anything out of the ordinary. I became more observant, more alert. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a guardian, a sentinel. I was a part of something bigger, something darker, and yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, I found myself drawn to the forest. There was something about its mysteries, its secrets that called to me. It was like a siren song, luring me deeper into its enigmatic embrace. As I sat at my desk, I couldn't help but wonder, what really happened to Clive? And so, our tale of the Campfire Horrors comes to an end. Until next time, sleep tight. Before we part ways, dear viewers, remember to stay vigilant. The Campfire Horrors may have been extinguished for now, but the embers of the unknown always remain. As you lay down to sleep tonight, don't forget the lessons from our tale. Safety is but a fleeting moment in a world of unseen. So if you've enjoyed this journey into the abyss, don't forget to ring that bell and smash that like button. Do it before the thing under your bed decides to pay you a visit. Oh, and keep those night lights on. You never know what might be lurking in the dark. Thank you for embarking on this terrifying adventure with us. Until our paths cross again in another tale of the unknown. Goodbye and sweet dreams, if you can.